Good evening and welcome to another edition of Balls and Brew. And once again, we have a very special show. We are doing our second instalment of our combined 11, as it was very successful last week when we had Jay and Andy fighting it out for the United and Chelsea combined 11. Although Mark had some very, very big opinions on the team that ended up getting through. But there we are. So now it's time for him to fight his corner up against Arsenal fan Will. And we'll start, first of all, with Mark. How are you?
I'm good, mate. Yeah, good weekend, and happy to crack on with this. This should be quite straightforward, isn't it? It's just a United team and we might slip in Henry and Vieira.
Fight and talk straight away, Will. What have you got to say to that evening, mate? How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Look, it's always going to be a tough battle against one of the top United teams, but we went head to head on many occasions over the years, and many of our players threw it up to your best players. So let's just see how it goes nowadays.
Perfect. I like it. So if you're new to the format, first of all, welcome. Basically, what I'm going to do is I'm going to remain as impartial as I can, and we are going to decide on a Manchester United and Arsenal combined all-time Premier League 11. I'll get the guys to choose. I'll give them a position. They'll give me their choices, and I have to decide which one I prefer to go in. On the back of last week, I've decided that if your team has the best captain in it, that also gives you an extra point. So last week we had a 6-5 win to Chelsea, but we are going to award an extra point. So if it's split down the middle, there we go. So we won't do managers because that's pretty pointless because probably Arsenal and United probably are the two best managers in Premier League history. So it's probably not a fair argument, but there we are. Let's go straight into it. The virtual coin toss took place off air, and I'm saying, Will, you are up first, and I want you to give me your all-time Arsenal Premier League goalkeeper, please.
Now, goalkeeper is a really interesting position. Both Arsenal and United have been quite lucky to have some all-time greats in goal in their ranks, off the top of my head. Now, we didn't get the best Petr check, but it was over their whole career. That'd be an argument, but that was for Chelsea, so he can get the hell out, because for Arsenal, he was pretty terrible. And then it's stuck between the two goalkeepers. I think David Seaman may have been a better goalkeeper, and that's where you may think that I'm going to go with, but I'm actually going to go Jens Lehmann. I think for him to come in and replace David Seaman as a top German goalkeeper, be the goalkeeper that led us to be invincible, be the goalkeeper that in our run to the Champions League final in our greatest team just drove us there by not conceding a goal, keeping clean sheets at the Bernabeu, keeping clean sheets in very strong games. I think he just pips it for what he's done for us as a club. And yeah, he was there for our greatest achievements and was a key factor in terms of his craziness. Yeah, he could completely ruin his mindset on any other player could completely ruin a team, but that craziness was just something that was needed to keep a top back four in line as well. Like,
Strong words, Mark. Strong words. Not a bad start, but have you got someone better than Jens Lehmann?
Well, I've got quite a few better than Lehmann. To choose him over Seaman, I'm impressed he went for that. I would have chose Alex Manager over Lehmann. But I'll give some honorary mentions. Fabian Barthez we could go with, better than all of them. French World Cup winner. But it's between two, isn't it? Let's be fair. The two probably best goalkeepers ever in the Premier League, if you take Czech out of it, and that is Edwin van der Sar or Peter Schmeichel. Does the coin land on heads or does it land on tails? I don't think there's an argument. But for me, it's always going to be Peter Schmeichel. What did that guy not do? Treble winner, underdogs, European Championship winner, moved from Bromby to United, and literally just every season went one better. I know he's tarnished. by going and playing for Shitty across the road, but yeah, for me, he's always the greatest goalkeeper we ever saw. But then Van der Sar, I think any team would have been happy to have had him at any point in his career. So, but yeah, Peter Schmeichel for me is a better goalkeeper, and I don't think we'll try and argue the case, but I don't think Lehmann even feels the shoe of either of those other two. If I was to choose either one.
Yeah, I think that I'll be honest with you, Will. It's very difficult to argue Jens Lehmann against Peter Schmeichel. I think you can understand that, even as myself as a United fan. It's not bias. It's just fact. So yeah, I think Mark wins round one. Very comfortable.
We'll just say if it was Petr Cech, where you are right, he was better at Chelsea than he was at Arsenal. Cech is the one who is the Peter Schmeichel or Petr Cech. You know, it's a bit like Alisson or Ederson right now in the last couple of seasons. Which one's the better goalkeeper? I do rate Petr Cech, especially before the head injury. So.
Yeah, no, yeah, Mark's absolutely spot on. That's what on Tuesday last week. Andy put in Petr Cech obviously for his Chelsea side, and I thought it's really difficult to argue against in a Premier League 11. It's really difficult not to put in Petr Cech, but on this occasion, we're giving it to Mark. It is Peter Schmeichel going straight in at goalkeeper. So now, obviously, Will went first. So now I want you to give me your right back, Mark.
Paul Parker. No, I'm joking. Well, there is only really one right back for Manchester United, and that's obviously Gary Neville. All fans of every shape and size will have their own say on him now as a businessman, pundit, entrepreneur. But as a right back, he was, peanut butter and jelly, strawberry and jam, whatever. Him and David Beckham's link up was what was spoken about most. But do you know what? He was so reliable. Gary Neville is as much of a shoo-in at right back as I'm pretty sure Will feel his left back will be a shoo-in. And there's not much more we can say. Like Gary Neville is Gary Neville, isn't he? He just done his job. He went in, done his job, went home, went to bed at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock at night, and was ready for the next day at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock the next morning. Didn't go out. Constant professional. Yeah, for me, one of the best. And the argument has been in recent weeks on a lot of different other channels, Kyle Walker or Gary Neville. No one else's name comes into it. So, yeah.
Unless, Will, do you have someone that you think can compare to Gary Neville?
Do not say Laurent.
I don't think you necessarily can compare. I'm not gonna say Lauren, even though he was a good mentality. The best right back for us would have to be Lee Dixon. To be fair, he stayed at the club for many years, from 1988 until 2002. Like, he was definitely part of our best back four, along with him, a guy that I'm gonna say in centre back, Mr. Arsenal, and a few other players. Like, he definitely was Arsenal's best right back. Unfortunately, everyone kind of knows Gary Neville was the best right back in the Premier League, so not really going to fight it, but Lee Dixon definitely deserves a lot more respect than a lot of people ever think about him as a good top right back.
Yeah, I fully agree with that.
Yeah, I'm with you. Lee Dixon doesn't get the respect he deserves, but like you say, it's very difficult. Like Mark was just saying, it's either Kyle Walker or Gary Neville for an all-time. So,
also, just say I don't like him as a pundit, though.
No, I'm with you on that one. So yeah, we're putting Gary Neville in at right back. Going to do something slightly different this time. So last week I asked them to give me both of theirs, but I'm going to do sort of a little bit of a top trumps here. So Will, I'm going to get you to say your player of one of your centre backs, and Mark's going to go up against that one, and it's a bit like whose card's better, and then we'll do the same. So your other two will fight out for the other position. So I want your first centre back, please, Will.
Which one am I gonna go for first? I'm gonna go for. You know what? I'm gonna say I'll go this order. I'll go Sol Campbell first, because I think personally, when you look at our big, strong centre backs, there is a couple that come to mind, and he'd be one of them. The fact that he was so good again in that run to the 2006 final, scored the goal in that final when we're down to 10 men. And if it wasn't for aluminium hands, God knows what would have happened there. He was key in his partnership with like Colo Torre in the back line on the run to 2004. He was a massive leader. He joined from our biggest rivals just to turn heads in stories that they hate him still to this day. So in terms of hatred, you can't knock that. I know it's not in terms of his playing ability, but you gotta get some extra points for rattling your fans' rivals, you know? And look, to me, he is probably up there with Arsenal's greatest ever centre backs.
Tough argument there, Mark. Who are you putting up against Sol Campbell, Judas, as he is known to the people down the road?
After hearing, and it's one of the books I want to read now, Sol Campbell's story. He was highly underrated because of the move, but Manchester United had a very highly, well, not necessarily underrated, but he didn't play for long. You know, I thought of a few. Again, you could have gone Laurent Blanc. What a career. Didn't play for Manchester United that long and wasn't great at Manchester United. But I put Stam up against him. Jaap Stam. Only left Man United because he fell out with the manager. His stats are some of the best in his season. To anyone in the Premier League, Jules won, headers. There wasn't much he couldn't do. Went on to have a great career in Italy. But yeah, my first one, I'll put Stam versus Sol Campbell. And trust me, I could have gone for a lot of names here. Not picking my first choice centre back.
No. It's very similar sort of bills. The family sort of no nonsense centre backs. I think because I probably saw more of Campbell than I did Stam, I'm probably going to say Campbell at that position. So we're going to stick Sol Campbell in.
Very weird fact about Sol Campbell. He was the first player for Arsenal that Arsene Wenger re-signed to a club. Before that, he'd never re-signed a player once they were sold. But back in 2010, he came in, trained with like the reserves after his Portsmouth days, and managed to get back in. And that changed his mentality on bringing players back that they can have a role.
Because he was a leader. And that's what I will say about him. He was a winner. That's all he cared about. I come here to win trophies. Those are his words. So, yeah, I'm happy. I'm happy to give up a spot to Sol Campbell, but I still say United have got many better centre backs than that. If we went partnerships, and that's the thing. That's the other side of centre backs is partnerships.
Yeah, that's why I changed the rules.
Yeah,
it's my channel. I'll do it on. So I changed the rules because I knew that if we stick any United partnership up against another partnership, there's a good chance that United will probably win every time. That's why I decided, we're going to split down the middle. So now you've heard Sol Campbell and Jaap Stam. Mark, who is your other centre-back?
I'm pretty sure everyone could probably guess this, bar J. But Rio Ferdinand. Rio Rolls-Royce Ferdinand. What could that guy not do? Just pure calmness on the ball. Up for a fight if he needed. Pops up with some goals. How many centre-backs back in his day were bringing the ball down on the chest and dribbling it out of defence instead of just putting their head for it? For me, just pure class as a centre-back. And if you put him in today's game, I think he'd make Van Dijk looks, pretty normal. Van Dijk stands out now. I think that was the Rio Ferdinand back then, what he does. But I will say, I chose Rio and I chose Stam. For me, as a defensive partnership, you're not getting past them because I think Stam for Vidic was probably, I would rate Stam over Vidic, but Vidic is a destroyer. Steve Bruce, Gary Pallister. These are all honourable mentions of other centre backs I would have been willing to go for player fee player. But let's see. I'm calling it now. Rio versus Tony Adams.
Oh, go on, Will. Is he right?
I mean, of course he's right. How can you have an Arsenal centre-back without Mr. Arsenal? He is literally what defined Arsenal's defence. He was part of that massive Arsenal back four next to Lee Dixon at right back, and he was the captain of it. He was the one that drove us. He was key, him and Steve Bold, the two of them as a partnership, to 1-0 out the Arsenal. You know, if you're part of a back four that's renowned for keeping clean sheets where you win games 1-0, you know, you have to be up there with your defensive prowess. You know, he was literally known by Arsene Wenger as the doctor. Where was he? The doctor of defense. You know, he came around, and the funny thing is, he did it back in the days when you were able to start drinking, and he'd be pissed after weekends and managed to still out defend them. Then when Wenger came in, he managed to turn his life around, become great in sobriety as well, and just continue being the leader in this new generation of defenders and show them what it's like and what the standards you need to play Arsenal is. Like, we all know, even the season that we won the league, he goes down, we've easily won it, and he even scores goals down the other end of the pitch somehow against Everton. Like,
is it the one where he ran the length of the pitch and volleyed it in?
Yeah. Like, and this
I
is
remember Tony Adams for that one goal.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's not a bad one. You know, he scores that goal, then goes on to lift the trophy as the captain. You know, that's all you can be remembered for. Plus, he was so good that he's got a statue outside the stadium that I don't think Rio Ferdinand does. So if you're looking at
We've got
legends,
a few bigger names than that.
Yeah, I know. But look, this isn't about the bigger names that you have. This is about the 1v1. And you can't have a defense without Mr. Arsenal.
Right. We're never going to agree. So I'm taking it to the stats.
Well, I was going to say, can we offer a trade here? Would you give up Sol Campbell to have Rio?
That I probably would. That I would say. Because if you're looking at partnerships, I think if you could imagine Tony Adams and Rio Ferdinand as a pair, it would be solid. The same way that I think if you actually partnered, say, Yap Stam with Sol Campbell, it would have been an interesting pair as well. I think it's where we fought each other off it and ball playing versus pure ferocity pairs, you know?
I like it. Yeah, I like it. So we're taking out Sol Campbell and we'll put Rio in there, Tony Adams alongside him. I like that. That'll do lovely.
I agree. Tony Adams. So when I coach the defenders, I talk about Arsenal's shoestring defence all the time. When the right back goes, you shuffle across, and it is literally a shoestring. It's like that. Your centre back comes across, your right back goes up, and vice versa. And that's all Arsenal was known for. That is how the 1-0 Arsenal thing was coached, and Tony Adams was a master of it. And if you think about it, Rio replaced Adams probably in the England setup as well. So that was the one that came in for him once he stopped playing for England. So I think that's a solid centre back. You got a mobile one and you got a destroyer, which is what you pretty much want in as two centre backs. I think we can all agree.
Yeah. It's the stats are pretty close in all respects. Like win percentage is very close, 57 to 51 in favour of Rio. But he played 160 more games than Adams. 6 Premier League titles to Adams' 2. But, you know, like Will said, very comfortably and very confidently, you can't really have a centre-back pairing probably in this respect without Tony Adams. So I'm happy with that. Rio Ferdinand and Tony Adams as our centre-back pairing. Now, Mark, you said earlier that whoever Will says at left-back is a shoo-in. So let's see if this is as much as a shoo-in as you say it is. Will, who are you putting in at left-back?
Obviously, the left back has to be Andre Santos. Only man. And if you remember him, God bless you. But No, obviously it has to be annoyingly Cashley Cole. Like,
Mm.
he's the best left back that the Premier League has probably seen. Like, he was so good coming up through the ranks for us, and look, he was a key part of our defense in the years for the fucking Invincibles. And look, even when he's gone on past us, he even went on to get better and better with the crap down the load, the guy on the road. But look, there's no denying his abilities. He's gone on and won basically everything. And look, he's what can be said about Ashley Cole's career except for he was just a top left back and one of the best out there, annoyingly.
I'll tell you now, Mark. I find it very difficult to find anyone better than Ashley Cole. So you've got to convince me because at the moment he's straightened.
Well, I'm going to try and convince you, but I'm going to make a few points here.
Go for
Will,
it.
you twice said he went on to be a better player. So he wasn't a great player, as great as he was known for, because he done better at Chelsea and grew into being a better player at Chelsea after he left Arsenal. Okay. Cashley Cole for a reason. You know, you bought in sold from a rival and you sold one to a rival. But my left back, I don't know. I think if you're not sitting down, a few United fans tend to forget this player, and so does most of the league. But he was one of the greatest left and right backs of the Premier League with goals and assists. So, Nathan, you might want to get some stats up. Dennis Irwin, free kick maestro, penalty taker, assists, could play left back, right back. I could have easily put him down as a right back if I wanted to challenge for Gary Neville, because we signed him as a right back and pushed him to the left once Gary Neville came through. And he is constantly forgotten about. There's a few players in the Premier League in some of our teams, like you said about Lee Dixon, was a great right back. Dennis Irwin, again, is up there, but his goals and assists speak for himself. And I think his stats are better than Ashley Cole's at Arsenal's. Ashley Cole, all-time Premier League, hands down, best left back, I would say. But for me, I'm going over Patrice Evra, Mikel Silvestre, another player Arsenal signed off us, to replace him. But yeah, that's me. Dennis Irwin. I've got to admit, I looked up to him as a kid because, again, a pure professional. If it wasn't for him, Roy Keane wouldn't have gone on to be the player that he was, because he literally said he was a leader for Ireland and he kept Keane under check. So roommates all their playing careers together.
Right, okay. Going to bring up the stats, all right? So I'm focusing purely on defence because I don't care about attack. I don't care about team play because if I want a no-nonsense right back. So, clean sheets. Appearances for Mr. Dennis Irwin is 328 to Ashley Cole's 385. Okay.
Fine.
Clean sheets to Dennis Irwin is 123.
Hang on, have you got Ashley Cole's all-time stats there?
Just
300 games,
just
only Chelsea, isn't it?
yes, yeah, it's all games, all Premier League.
Because they conceded only 15 goals in one season.
Yeah, I don't think I won't be able to narrow it down that much. Yeah, the interesting stat. I don't know how correct this is. It'll be interesting to make sure. Actually, it says goals conceded, 1, but that can't be correct. So, Premier League stat centre, you've actually let me down. Pointless exercise that was. I love Dennis Irwin, but I'm going to have to take into account the player that Ashley Cole went on to be. Yeah, unfortunately, Ashley Cole goes in for me, I'm afraid. I know.
Well, you should push for Peter Cech if he's doing this.
Yeah, but I couldn't do Petr Cech because of his incredible downfall. His worst is not as bad as, say, Schmeichel's worst or Van der Sar's worst.
Yeah, I think because last week Jay put Petr Cech. Well, no, Jay put forward Edwin van der Sar against Petr Cech. Now, as much as Edwin van der Sar is probably my all-time favourite goalkeeper, but for Chelsea, Petr Cech was the best goalkeeper in the world for a number of years. So it had to go to Petr Cech. Where in this respect, Ashley Cole did it consistently for two teams over many, many years. So yeah, I'm going Ashley Cole. But you have an opportunity to redeem yourselves going forward, Mark. Nicely poised at the moment. So in the back line, we've got two each, and we've got one goalkeeper on United. So it's finally poised. Who went first that time? You did, didn't you, Will? So Mark, I want your first. Who do you want to put up against one of Will's centre midfielders? I think there's an obvious pairing, but go for it.
Yeah, we're playing 4-4-2, right?
Yes, we are.
So I think this will be just a nice debate, and we're going to pick the same two central midfielders, I think, hands down, anyway. But I want to put my first one up as Captain Marvel, Brian Robson.
And who are you putting up against Brian Robson?
To be honest, that's the one, just so we can complete the pair probably easily. That's when I'll put up Patrick Vieira.
Yeah. We all know where this is going. Let's just get it over and done with, shall we? We might as well skip through the necessities. We're putting Patrick Vieira alongside Roy Keane, aren't we? Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Well, there's Paul Scholes to be mentioned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, obviously I'm going to go for Keno. And we might as well have the captain thing here. We'll say that
I was just going to say, should we have? Let's have a argument. Who was the Premier League's all-time best captain out of Patrick Vieira and Roy Keane? Mark, over to you first.
So, on a different show, these stats were put up about 3 or 4 weeks ago. They are so tight in games played, goals scored, cards, everything. Roy Keane edged Vieira by, I think, 3 goals in 17 less games or something like that. But there is no... I don't think we should pick him. I think we should pick someone else as a captain. Because there's no separating Roy Keane and Vieira.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for those two, Sky would have gone bust.
Yeah. I think that's probably a fair way to do it, Will, actually, because we're never going to agree on who the best captain is out of those two, are we? And like Mark just said, they are so similar and
literally
so
the only arguments that I can put against Roy Keane is nothing to do with Man United. It's the fact that he ended up having a bust up, say, with the manager in terms of his personality in that way, or the fact that he walked away from Ireland as the captain and then didn't come back. Those things are probably the only negatives that I can throw out at him. But
you could also say they were for a positive reason. He left Ireland in the lurch because they were literally pissed all over their players, and he wasn't looking at those standards. He was like, "That's not the standards of an international team." And Gary Neville and that said a lot of the players didn't have an issue with what Roy Keane said. It was just the manager saying you can't say what you did on live TV. When actually, yes, you can, because they do it day in, day out now on TV. Yeah. You've only got, who was it? Ollie Watkins. He said about not being played the other night. I was furious. I'm not sure he should have said that on camera. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I know it's such a good competition, but you'll never agree one way or the other. They're literally on par with each other, which is, it's a great thing to say about both players.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely agree.
Who was your midfielder?
Yeah, who was your other one?
It's an interesting one. It's because I would have either gone Gilberto, or if I wanted a more ball-playing player, I probably would have gone Cesc Fabregas. because
I'm a Chelsea
he's a
legend.
number. He wanted to come back to us, but Arsene Wenger didn't allow him. And that was his biggest. That was a big mistake because he chose to keep. We didn't need another attacking midfielder, and he chose to keep Ozil, who, to be fair, was playing well at that stage. But if we had Cesc Fabregas and Ozil, how would defenses not be broken down by that attack? Like, but look, he was really great, and I know Arsenal fans don't necessarily always like him because of the way that he left us as well. You know, twerking for Barcelona and all this, but like when you look at his stats, when you look at his quality, when you look at how he came off the bench with a broken leg, I know it's only against Birmingham, scores 2 goals, wins us the game, gets subbed off again. Like he was so influential at different stages that honestly, Fabregas was just so good.
Yeah.
No, I
And he
think we got to
replaced,
the right.
you know,
If you look at the
Yeah.
two players, we put 2 centre midfield players there, and there's players we can't put in another position because hands down there's other players to go there. But no Paul Scholes, out of these two. You've got a handful. You say Gilbert, right? You say about Fabregas. Jack Wilshere had all the potential to be an English Fabregas, and just career didn't pan out the way he wanted through injuries.
Yeah, just injuries.
United, well, you just keep going. Like the ones Jason Park is the most underrated Man United player of all time. Michael Carrick,
Yeah.
who came in to replace. There's so many. We have been blessed, both teams, with solid midfields, but we've probably built our careers on.
But now it comes to Will. Who is you putting on the right hand side?
on the right, I'd say I'd have to go Robert Pires. I think he was probably Arsenal's greatest winger player. Could I go hipster and say, oh yeah, Bukayo Saka because he's dragging us back up to these heights and everything? Yeah, one day he should be, especially if he leads us to the Champions League this year. It's something that no other of our attackers could do. So, is he in the conversation for there? He actually is at the moment, which is amazing to say, but not there yet at all because these players have success. But if you look at him, when you look at Robert Pires, I think he was definitely our greatest attacker. He won 2 Premier Leagues, won the 3 FA Cups. He's got like 84 goals, 60 odd assists as well in 284 games. Like that's a goal or assist every second game. And when you consider like there were other players like Bergkamp, like Lumberg, like Henry, yeah, the assists come up, but the actual to get the 84 goals as well. I think he was a very good player, but he's also one that probably still gets underlooked by Arsenal fans as well when you look back, because you think of all the other great players that, despite him being probably our greatest winger, he's probably still underlooked.
Robert Pires is a good shout. But Mark, who have you put in as your right-sided midfielder?
Who do you want me to put in?
Hey, I'm just a referee. I have no non-bias. Straight down the middle.
So I'll counter your Pires just on stats. I would counter him with David Beckham if you want goals and assists. Yeah. But that's not who I'm going for. I'm going for Sue. Sue is going to play on the right. As in, Sue! Cristiano Ronaldo. Have we got any?
Are we having 08?
No, because you've gone on for what his career wanted to be in Ashley Cole. So therefore,
Oh. Oh. Are you sure you don't want that version? Because I mean, he did score from the right wing for the free kick in ages for United against us.
What was it before he left? Did he not almost have a 40-goal season?
Yeah.
I think it was 38, 39 goals. So for me, sorry, we can't do this. And I'm not putting Ronaldo up front. So, because he never played up front in the Premier League. So I'm at least going to keep it true there. And he didn't play, it's only now he plays up front because he doesn't have to do any running. So, but yeah, Ronaldo right wing. And like I say, and that's how I choose David Beckham. And I think either of them beat Pires personally.
Yeah. I think there's no argument really. CR7 has to go in, even if we did just do his first spell at United to win a Ballon d'Or, to win the Champions League. Yeah, very difficult to argue. I do like Robert Pires. He is one of my probably, if I
Very
had to
good
choose,
player.
if I had a favourite winger at Arsenal, it probably would have been Pires because he's just a really attractive player to watch on the ball. But yeah,
There was something
unfortunately, on
about French wingers in that era. You had Ginola on the left and Pires on the right for France at one point, and you're just like, they were like what we think of Jack Grealish for Aston Villa. You think you're getting in there for a tackle, and you haven't. You've either fouled them or they've gone past you with a little trick. They were tricky wingers, and and Pires, that's what he had. So yeah, let's move on to the next position, which I suppose has got to be the left, right?
go on, Mark.
Nah, I'll give up on this one. I'll let Will go first. I let him say either a Dutch winger or in Overmars, or unless he wants to come with someone else.
Go on, Will.
Is this where I pull out the actually gonna put Thierry Henry on the left? Because he's played most of his career off that left-hand side, even with France. To be honest, I'm going to put him out left because I think we've had not better than Henry strikers, but we've had better strikers than we've had left-sided players. So the fact that
Right.
Thierry Henry could play off the left and continue to go in, he's the best player that I think the Premier League has ever seen, in my opinion, in their time in the Premier League. Second place for me is a Man United striker, but I'm not gonna go into that. In Wayne Rooney, in my opinion, is second. But
This is going to be
no,
interesting.
to me, like how he never won a Ballon d'Or, I have no idea. There's things
Hands
that
down,
man can do on a
that
football
season.
pitch that just ceases to amaze me. Like, let alone I just think about the goal that he scored on Barthez against Man United. Just flicks it up, kicks it in top corner, makes it look easy.
There's not much argument here, Mark, but who have you gone for?
Well,
Welsh Wizard.
yeah, exactly. You've got to go Ryan Giggs, and we want to go longevity. We want to go trophies. We want to go goals, assists. Apart from there isn't any non-striker who's probably achieved more in the Premier League than Ryan Giggs. Even with his goals and assists, he's got to be up there when you put it all together, more than Shearer in goals and assists. Everyone just goes on about Shearer's goals because he never set anyone up. He was always taking the shot. And that's even in the SAS with Sutton and Shearer. But
yeah.
So I think we'll give you a little veto maybe later if you want to move on,
No,
because if you're looking at Bergkamp and Ian Wright up front as your best two strikers, United have had a hell of a lot of better strikers than them.
Oh, who's playing chess and who's playing checkers here, boys?
I know.
Just to let you know, as I am the referee and judge, I put Thierry Henry even before Mark had said Ryan Giggs, I'm afraid, because
Yeah,
like
if you're
Will
going to
said,
play him on the left, I can understand it. I can
yeah,
totally
Thierry
understand.
Henry is without question,
Yeah.
as it pains me to say, he is the greatest Premier League player of all time, hands down.
But I will point out, most people say he's the best Premier League striker of all time, not necessarily player. He's the greatest left winger of all time.
No, mine. I said it, player. So, right,
Can we
as
confirm
Mark's
Will's opinion? Ryan Giggs or Eden Hazard?
Ooh. Giggs done it longer, I also think I do rate Eden Hazard, but I'm close to the debate that honestly him and Alexis aren't much different. So Ryan Giggs just beats them all in terms of probably being the best left-sided player. But he also was a terrible human being and got arrested many times. So I don't like to praise him too much.
Oh dear. Right, moving swiftly on. Right, two strikers left. Will, who are you putting in as one of your strikers, please? Who are you putting up against one of Mark's strikers?
You know what? Whether or not they're the best, I don't here, I just wanted to put in some of my favourites. This one has to be because he's Mr. Arsenal to me, Ian Wright. I think when you look at it, is our best striker, except for probably Thierry Henry, was our top goal scorer for years, is a crazy character. We all call Tony Adams Mr. Arsenal, but to be honest, Ian Wright is Mr. Arsenal in the media. Like everything he does on and off the pitch is dedicated to us. And in terms of being one of these older players, getting his chance to go to these big clubs, coming to us, becoming our top goal scorer despite coming to us quite late in his career, and just scoring the amount of goals he did, just winning us FA Cups, winning us the league. There's just nobody much better than Ian Wright, and even as a personality, you can't love anyone more than Ian Wright. Unless you're any Luca.
Mark, who are you putting up against Ian Wright?
Well, considering if we took Ian Wright, we'd have a striker who can't score against our goalkeeper. I would put up, and this is going to be quite funny because there was an interview done a few weeks ago. Andy Cole. Ian Wright rates Andy Cole as probably the best underrated striker in Premier League history. And his goals per game ratio, who never took a penalty out of those goals per game ratios, I reckon Cole beats Wright hand down. And Ian Wright, Mr. Arsenal, talks about West Ham a lot for Mr. Arsenal and his career there and how he started there, and he still talks about their academy. I think Cole beats him hands down. Hands down.
Right. Well, who was your other striker, please?
To be honest, let's be honest, it probably should be Dennis Bergkamp because he is our greatest, he is our second greatest player. He's the greatest player that Thierry Henry ever played with and the rest. But I was going to probably put in a bit of a cheese and just end up putting in Robin Van Persie because he played for both clubs. And, he was such an unbelievable goal scorer. I ain't going to praise him too much, but...
Obi's the new Andy Cole, I'm telling you, at Man United now. You let him go from the youth academy and he might come back to haunt you.
Right, Mark, who's your other striker? I'm assuming it's one of two, but go on.
It's neither of those two.
It's neither of those. Who did you think I was going to say?
Rude or Rooney?
I wasn't going to say Rude, but go on.
Oh, okay. Well, it's not Rude either. But for me, people think I'm mad, and I think this is my heart over my head. It's Eric Cantona. If we're talking about Mr. and the club, Man United would not be Man United if Eric Cantona hadn't come. We wouldn't have achieved anything. He just brought everyone together and led the line, created goals, scored goals, was apparently what we should never have taken him. Leeds wanted rid of him, Marseille wanted rid of him, French team wanted rid of him. And it's amazing what happens when you find the right manager. So I'm literally choosing here. No Rude, no Rooney, second top goal scorer in the league, club all-time top goal scorer. And I would go for Eric Cantona to put him in there. I think, again, it's like having a team without Ronaldo in it and putting David Beckham in and Giggs in on the wings. You can't have a Man United team without Eric Cantona. You've only got to ask any fans about this whole FC of Manchester stuff and him now becoming an owner. He is Mr. Man United. He was the king of Man United.
Robin Van Persie is not going in it, by the way.
Thank you.
It was cheeky. I'm tempted to put two versions of Robin Van Persie in, just Arsenal and United version. So just, I think Cantona has to go in, like Mark said.
Yeah.
I think that's fair. The difficulty is you've got two very similar players in Andy Cole and Ian Wright. And I also think that, yeah. Oof. Don't like it. Don't like it at all.
Have a look at the goals career. It's a striker at the end of the day. We don't care about anything but goals, right? Have a look at Andy Cole versus Ian Wright's goals. Colby Wright.
Andy Cole is the fourth highest. Go on.
I was just going to say, people go on about Jamie Vardy. Ian Wright was the original Jamie Vardy. To be pulled off of Hackney Marshes playing for a Saturday side and given a second chance. Bear in mind, he'd been let go from clubs after clubs after clubs, which happened so much back then in London. And to come back and have the career he had through Palace and then moving on to Arsenal is something special, because there wasn't the lower league teams that you could get pulled up from back then. Football was a different structure.
Right. I've got the stats of Premier League goals. Ian Wright, 185. Andy Cole, 187.
In how many games?
Yeah. Andy Cole would have played less, I'd have said.
414 appearances for Andy Cole. In the Premier League, Ian Wright made 213. Saying that,
213 and scored 400. How many goals?
213 appearances in the Premier League, 113 goals in the Premier League for Ian Wright.
So 1 in 2. Well, yeah, 1 in 2, we'll say.
I think 185 was his all-time goals, because obviously there was football before the Premier League, apparently.
Yeah, he went Burnley, and he actually went around quite a few clubs in the end, didn't he? Where Andy Cole done Newcastle and Manchester United.
I have to say, I was expecting more from your centre forwards and strikers, but
well, like I said, I can flip mine and just go, what about Rooney then? What about Ruud van Nistelrooy?
I mean, you could, but too late.
Well, the only other option is about what we mentioned earlier, is that moving Thierry Henry up front and putting Ryan Giggs in at left. Then you'd have a French partnership at front at Eric Cantona and Thierry Henry.
Yeah, but I don't like Ryan Giggs. So.
So we're depriving the world. Tell you what, I'll put Thierry Henry on the left and I'll put Cantona on the left. So at least we've got some sort of chemistry.
Can I just say, this was brought up about, it must be this time last year, where Ryan Giggs is not getting nominated for the Hall of Fame because of what went on outside of football, and he's not being nominated just purely on that. We're doing exactly the same thing here.
Yep.
Like, but what about what happened outside of the football?
Yeah, right. It's time for the argument, I suppose, and that was I'll tell you the scores on the doors now. So, Arsenal players, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. United players, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So, either way, United have won, but we still need to decide on our captain. So while I was going to say, while you're deliberating that and discussing that, I'll bring the team up. But you've already
unless Will's choice wouldn't be Henry, he might go Tony Adams.
Go on.
He's thinking
amongst yourselves.
You see, Tony Adams was more of a leader, but then Thierry Henry was a leader in his goals and how he dragged players. But in his team, it was Patrick Vieira that was the captain.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, I would have probably said it would be Tony Adams would be the captain, even though Thierry Henry was a better player. Tony Adams was just the leader that dragged his team, and as he said, he was a leader from the back to keep the clean sheets.
Wasn't
that
he
then allowed the rest of the team to play.
Isn't that why he wasn't captain? He was stripped of that captaincy by Arsene Wenger when he came in because of the drinking culture and things like that. Because I'm sure he was Arsenal captain, wasn't he?
He was, I think.
Because I could go through my players, even though it's on the screen now. Peter Schmeichel, former Man United captain, had to give it up once he took over from Roy Keane when Keane done his ACL. Gary Neville, Manchester United captain. Cantona captain. Roy Keane captain. And Dennis Irwin was vice captain. If I wanted to go for him as my left back. Brian Robson was a captain. Arsenal, you kept it quite tight, didn't you? You didn't really move that armband around much.
Yeah, to be honest, it's just, we had our key leader and the key players. Because if you think it went Tony Adams, you had Patrick Vieira that was there for a nice while, and then I don't know, after 06, 05, 06, I tend to just forget the captains after, say, Sol Campbell as well and the rest, but because I prefer to forget most of the players after 07 for many a year.
Vieira left and he gave it to Henry until Henry left. And then you pretty much fell off a cliff from that point.
Sure. That's when we were rebuilding our squad from the table because of the Emirates and miracles make top four. Annoyingly.
I'm quite happy with that team.
The only disappointment for me is Andy Cole, I'm afraid. But I'm not the one choosing the team. I'm just the referee and judge.
Hey, I was expecting Henry to be up top. So what do you want me to say?
Hey. Well, look, I like that little French triangle. Henry.
Yeah, I've moved them around. You've got a 4 Arsenal here.
Yeah. To be fair, though,
Who did we decide on
Rooney
captain then?
instead of Andy Cole? Was Rooney is the second best player in the Premier League in my opinion.
But in my footballing opinion, Rooney might have scored all those goals. He is not a good striker.
Yeah. But, technically, if you have Cantona playing up top, Rooney can drop off and try and create, while Henry and Ronaldo play up top. But that's tactical. That's not why we're here.
4-4-2.
Rooney scored his goals in the 4-4-2.
So who did we argue Thierry Henry to be captain in the end, did we?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not giving it to Ronaldo. I'm not giving it, my second argument would be the captain before Roy Keane, and that was Eric Cantona. For the reason he's in the team, he dragged Man United up to winning all those league titles, the first 2 Premier League titles. Done what he did, came back, lifted the team whenever he walked on that pitch. I think you can all just close your eyes and picture him walking out as captain, shoulders back, chest out, head up. Let's fucking have them. Do you know what I mean? I think I even still walk out like that now. That is the way you walk out on the pitch to say you've got something about you.
Yeah. No, I think that's fair. But yeah, on this occasion, so that means that what did I say? It was 7-5 with the point for the captain. That makes it 7-6. 7-6 win for United. But still, a very, very good team. Gentlemen, it's been an absolute pleasure. And yeah, really enjoyed that. We will be back over the weekend with some more, or the weekend coming, I should say, with some more Red Devils roundups. And then next week we'll probably be back again, either doing something like this or we'll be doing a talk of the league. But yeah, I hope everyone enjoys the rest of their week and we will see you soon.
Yeah, bring it next week.